Hi everybody, welcome to topic 2 here of Unit 1. In this topic I want to use the United States and the United Kingdom to reinforce the ideas presented in topic 1. I'm hoping to use the United States because hopefully there'll be both some new information for you and then some new ideas, but the new ideas will be presented in the context from the first unit, and hopefully those two things will mutually reinforce one another. I want to start here with first bit from the last unit. Quick review. So we've got Taiwan here that we talked about in topic 1, Guadeloupe on the other side that we talked about also in unit 1, and they have sort of a different level of recognition through the international system. So Guadeloupe, we had that picture of them playing a soccer game in the Caribbean, North America, Central America region against the United States. And I told you that they didn't have global recognition through FIFA because they're a department of France. That's basically the version of a state in France or a province in France. So they play soccer in regional competitions. They have a selection, they have a league in Guadeloupe. They're part of the French National Soccer Federation because they're part of France, right? So if you had a soccer team that was playing in Idaho, Idaho's relationship is with not an Idaho Soccer Federation higher up than to CONCACAF, but to the U.S. Soccer Federation. Then CONCACAF, so the Regional Soccer Fed, recognizes Guadeloupe. But FIFA does not, and they don't because Guadeloupe is an integrated, distinct entity, fully integrated entity within the French system. So they can't be independent in soccer purposes, so it stops there. Then the Global Federation does not recognize them. Taiwan, on the other hand, there's the Chinese Taipei Football Association. They're part of a sub-regional soccer federation called the East Asian Football Federation, which is part of the Asian Football Confederation, and then that's part of FIFA. They would be blocked if China could do it. China can't. This is one of those places, right, we talked about in the first unit, where because there's not sort of this idea of one country only, one country, one vote like the UN has, where they can't have two Chinas. Sports can, and so when China started roaring to the fore in the international relations field in the UN, there was nothing that precluded Taiwan from still being recognized. So there they are. So let's now pull it over to the United States. So the United States, as you know, is comprised of 50 states in the District of Columbia. Those are the main integrated parts of the United States. But there are 6 other inhabited, quote-unquote, unincorporated. There means unincorporated, not because there's no government operating locally, because not unincorporated into the United States. There's actually several dozen other reefs and islets and other things where atolls in the Pacific that are part of the United States but no one lives. But there's 6 other unincorporated inhabited places in the world. So in the Caribbean we have Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We also have things like the military base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, but it's not for the purposes of this sort of a distinct separate entity. It's a military base. Then you have in the Pacific American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and Wake Island. Wake Island's got like 50 people on it, so we won't talk about Wake Island after this. And this map sort of shows where some of these things are in the Pacific, particularly in relation to the Hawaiian Islands. Now, some of these have, all of these except for Wake Island, have some sporting relationship at some sporting organization. So remember, the concept is this. In international relations, the United Nations is bound to recognize the main national entity and no other subparts. If there's a subpart that says we want to be independent, they have to try and get recognition one by one from other countries around the world, or wholeheartedly through the UN. When South Sudan, for example, became independent, that was the one we mentioned last unit, it did so with the acquiescence, with the support of Sudan. The UN's not sort of set up to let sub-states declare independence and pull away. So otherwise, these entities are left to sports to recognize them. And there you have the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. So lots of people know what Puerto Rico is. Even if you didn't know there was a Guam or Mariana Islands, you know there's a Puerto Rico. So these are separate sporting federations. Puerto Rico has a distinct Olympic committee, has a distinct soccer team. It plays basketball, it plays baseball. And so the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico has an unequal relationship with the other states. It's not a state, right? So the citizens of Puerto Rico have full rights as American citizens, but the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico does not have the same rights. And some of this is really complicated in terms of the political realities that happen. We're not going to go into those. It's pretty fascinating reading, and this is the kind of thing that Wikipedia is made for, where you can get quick knowledge pretty simply and pretty easy access. But in sports, they're distinct. So that would mean that an American citizen born in Puerto Rico or born in New York to Puerto Rican parents has the right to play sports internationally for either Puerto Rico or for the United States. They can't switch between the two, but they get to be either one. And that means, though, that you can have times where this is a picture in the top left there of the World Baseball Classic that Puerto Rico won a silver medal at a couple of years ago, that the Puerto Rican Commonwealth flag is being waved and celebrated as if it was a national flag, but it gives them that distinct right. It can be an interesting relationship, but it gives them those distinctiveness. Guam is the same way. The Mariana Islands, I think, only have a sporting federation in track and field, and the Virgin Islands have separate sports in a whole host of ways. There is then that exception that we also looked at for cultural hearths, right? So the Iroquois nation, which used to occupy much of what is modern-day New York, and now straddles the border between the Canadian provinces and New York State. They're the originators of lacrosse. So in the International Lacrosse Federation, they're given rights to have a national team. But that means if you look here at this row of flags, this is the Iroquois flag, and it sits between the South Korean flag and the German flag. Now that's remarkable, right? So that even if they have trouble traveling on their own passports, as we talked about in that first unit, they do have their own national flag flying alongside two of what are some of the stronger powers in the world. These are both G20 nations that have the largest 20 economies in the world, South Korea and Germany. They're both major U.S. allies, and their flags frame the Iroquois flag at this international lacrosse tournament featuring the Iroquois nationals. There is another cultural hearth in the United States, sport that gets its own distinctive national team, and that's Hawaii with surfing. So of all the states in the Union, right, there is one state that has a distinct national team in one specific sport, and that's surfing. But it's that same sort of idea with the Iroquois, that because Hawaii is a cultural hearth for surfing, that the International Surfing Association, which is the governing body of surfing, just like FIFA is the governing body of soccer, they recognize Hawaii, and they recognize them with the support of the United States in this limited area. So there are many ways that substates can rise right to the fore. And what I want to look at now is sort of transition and look at this other state, look at the United Kingdom. Because this cultural hearth idea is going to combine with the substate idea, and you're going to have these different kinds of entities coming to the fore, falling behind, but trying to get some sort of recognition and stance in the world that lets the people know that they're distinct. Maybe they want to be independent, maybe they don't, maybe they just want to be known as distinct, like in Puerto Rico. Okay. Where there's in England. I do an activity when I go visit Ella middle schools, actually when I go visit Rotary Club units too, where I'll put up a list of country names, real or imagined, and I'll say which one of these is fake. And so the list will be all E countries. Eritrea, East Timor, El Salvador, England, Ethiopia, and they'll all be up there, Equatorial Guinea, and I say, which one of these is not a country? Well, invariably, somebody in there looks at it and says, well, I never heard of that one, Eritrea, what is that? That one's the fake one, Equatorial Guinea's the fake one, and really the one that's not a real independent country, vetted through the United Nations, is England. Now, it is true that a lot of people use the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, and England as synonyms, kind of like we used to make that mistake during the Cold War when we used Russia as a synonym for the Soviet Union. There were component parts, and so while Russia was the dominant one and the one that people knew of the most, it was by no means the only part. It was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. In this case, it's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, not England. But if there is an England in the international parlance, it's probably a certain kind of sport being played. Okay, so the United Nations, that one country, one vote thing, you have the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Those are unified. So the Great Britain is an island that has on it England, Wales, and Scotland. And Northern Ireland is a piece of the island of Eyre, and Ireland, the independent Republic of Ireland, occupies most of the island. Northern Ireland is a sort of a north east portion of the island that's part of the United Kingdom. That's at the United Kingdom. In the Olympics, Great Britain is the distinct entity, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. It's a little odd. But in three sports in particular, there's an England. So England in the Olympics is part of Great Britain. England at the United Nations is part of the United Kingdom. But England in FIFA, England in rugby, England in cricket is England. So if there's an England in international encounters, it's probably in one of those three sports. Why are they distinct? Well, in those three sports, you actually have a relationship where uh, um, the cultural hearths get a chance to be recognized distinctively. So in soccer and rugby, those are sort of possessed collectively by England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Okay, so in those sports, in soccer and rugby, those four are distinct. In soccer and rugby, there's those four. Now, how does it work at the Olympics? Confusing. It's Great Britain. So the Olympics has many different sporting federations which are members. We'll look at the Olympic structure in a couple of lectures down the line. So all the different sporting federations who want to be in the Olympics or are in the Olympics funnel up into the International Olympic Committee. So they can recognize whoever they want, but the only ones who can participate in the Olympics, right, are the ones who are recognized by the International Olympic Committee. So it doesn't matter if the Northern Mariana Islands are independent parts of the United States sporting-wise in the Track and Field Federation. If they go to track and field competitions, they can be the Mariana Islands. But if they want to go to the Olympics, they can't because the Northern Mariana Islands are not part of the Olympics. England can't show up at the Olympics, even though there's a soccer competition and a rugby competition. They can only show up at the Olympics as part of Great Britain. So Great Britain then in the Olympics is England, Scotland, and Wales, and in a weird situation, sometimes Northern Ireland. So what happened is that Great Britain was a member of the Olympic movement before there was an independent Ireland. And when there was an independent Ireland, the people who are the Northern Ireland, who then joined the United Kingdom, they get to choose whether to be part of the Irish Olympic team or the British Olympic team. They got some articles on a golfer named Rory McIlroy to sort of give you insight into this. But at the Olympics, it's Great Britain. In soccer and rugby, it's England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And then there comes cricket. Some of these are some pretty great flags, you'll have to admit, looking at these. You've got England and Scotland. You don't have Wales and Northern Ireland because they don't really play cricket there. But you do have the Isle of Man, you have Jersey, Turks and Caicos, the Cook Islands, the Falkland Islands, and Guernsey, all with distinct teams recognized by the Cricket Federation. Now, what that really means is it's part of the cultural hearth argument. And they're also parts of the Great Britain and Northern Ireland that aren't fully integrated in all ways. They have some sort of division there. Cricket was originated in England, and as it spread around the world, it largely spread to places where there were distinct settler groups that adopted the game. And what does that mean? It means that you can use the words of the Guernsey Cricket Federation, Guernsey being a small island off the coast of the UK. You can push the boundaries. What does this mean, push the boundaries? So the question is, who gives you the recognition and what does it mean? When Guernsey plays cricket, you do have then other cricketing nations, cricketing federations that have to recognize that there is a Guernsey that's distinct from the United Kingdom, or distinct from Great Britain, or distinct from England, depending on what kind of sports and federation you're looking at. That's helpful. Now, cricket is not as widely played as soccer or rugby, so in soccer and rugby you can get that sort of recognition much more broadly than you can for Guernsey playing cricket. So Scotland playing soccer or Wales playing rugby, that can get you wider recognition because more places are playing that sport. But Guernsey still can do that. They can still be distinct. So what does that all mean? It means that states of origin of a particular sport, they get additional consideration, right? The cultural hearths. Then so do some countries' substates, but you got to figure out what the relationship is between that substate and the parent entity. Chances are, if they are fully integrated members of that state, right, like Hawaii, then they're a cultural hearth. If they're not of a particular sport, if they're not fully integrated members of a particular state, then they have distinct sporting teams because they have different kinds of rights and responsibilities vis-a-vis the parent state. I got this assignment for you to compare the different national entities in different federations. So we'll look at the UN, we'll look at FIFA, and we'll look at either the IOC or the IAAF and have you sort of identify where the differences are. So that's next, and then we'll begin looking at politics and sports and politics, which are two different kinds of things, but sort of moving down the same path. Cheers.